live, I assume. Just going to check everything to make sure we're all good to go. And then we're going to jump in to today's stream. Okay, there we go. All right. Let's get us rocking and rolling on Rumble. And then we're going to be good to go. All right. Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Mashbitz, and welcome to my stream. If you're returning here, thanks for returning. If you're new, awesome. Hopefully you stay for the whole thing. I think this is going to be a really good one. We are breaking down two videos, which I've never seen before, from two creators I've never watched before, but their videos are very popular on YouTube. One's from Justin Sung about goals, building systems around your goals, and one's from Daniel Pink around the same subject. So we're going to watch both from two YouTube creators that I've never watched before, but their channels and these videos are very, very popular. I think the Justin Sung goals video has like 2 million views, and maybe the Daniel Pink one has like 700,000. So very popular. So I'm going to watch them. Hopefully I can learn something about goals and goal setting, and then I can break it down and have my live reaction and live analysis as well, because on my podcast and also on my channel, I released a goal setting masterclass. It only has, 100, I think it has 1,000 views. So these two videos obviously were way, way, way more popular than mine. So hopefully I can learn something in real time and also break it down, add my own insights, learn from these guys, share some stuff, and maybe it coincides with what I did on my goal setting masterclass episode and video. And maybe you want to go check that out as well. My podcast, I'm a host of a podcast called Something for Everybody on all major podcast platforms. And again, I did a goal setting masterclass. I did a Habits 101 class tomorrow, Friday, January 23rd. I'm releasing a self-image class. I encourage you to watch sort of all three of those. And then the next week, I'm doing a compilation video of all three of those in one, so you can get all of the best information to create a 2026 blueprint. So maybe 2026 can be the best fucking year of your life. And that's what these videos are about as well. So I'd love to learn from other YouTube creators and people who are thinking about this stuff, because majority of the stuff that I talk about is around mindset, mental health, and personal development. So that's why we're here. That's what we're breaking down. So let's see what these guys have to offer on these very popular videos. And maybe I can add my insights as well, so we can all learn and grow together. So again, if you're watching this right now, please follow or subscribe wherever you are, and check out my podcast, which is called Something for Everybody. So let's jump right in.
How is someone meant to balance working full time with constantly learning and upskilling, while getting enough sleep, while exercising and taking care of your health, and then spending time with your loved ones, and then having free time for hobbies? Is that even possible? Yes, it is, but only if you think in systems. I've spent over a decade coaching thousands of professionals to learn efficiently and succeed in their careers while having enough time and freedom to live life. And in my experience, thinking in systems is the secret to regaining control and freedom, so that you're not stuck on that hamster wheel of constantly feeling busy, while at the same time not making progress on the things that you really care about. So in this video, I'll explain what thinking in systems actually means, and I'll share with you some simple ways to build systems for your own goals, utilizing the same principles I use when I'm coaching.
Riverside's going to help you edit your podcast in record time.
I love Riverside.
Let's
I
have
use
a play.
Riverside, but boo.
Your podcast transcript is here.
Clients. So what does thinking in systems actually mean? The point of thinking in systems is that you reduce your reliance on thinking in terms of willpower and motivation. The aim is to reduce your dependency on these two things. And instead, what we do is that
also, I mean, just starting off, I love this setup. I love how he's writing stuff down. It's easy to understand, easy to see. But like, there's a saying that goes, when we're talking specifically about willpower, before he jumps into whatever he's going to discuss, there's a saying about willpower that you want to buy your willpower at the store. Now, what does that mean? That means, for example, if you're really hungry, should you go to the grocery store? No, because you're probably going to buy stuff that you normally wouldn't buy. And if your habit that you want to put in place, or your target that you want to put in place for 2026 is to potentially eat less sugar, and you go to the store really hungry, you're more likely to buy that sugar. And then if you buy it and have it at your house, you're more likely then to eat it. So if you want to buy your willpower at the store, that means not ever buying the sugar to be in your house. So there creates a lot of friction between you and having to eat sugar. So you actually have to go to the store and buy it if you want it at your house, or you have to order it, you have to get it delivered. There's some sense of friction between you and doing the thing you don't want to do. And if you listen to James Clear, who's like the habits guy, he talks about that for deleting bad habits, right? You want to make it really, really hard to do the bad habit. Again, a lot of people say that you shouldn't look at your phone right when you wake up. Okay, if that's what you want to do, how do I buy my willpower at the store? Well, maybe I leave my phone downstairs in another room in a box, so that when I do, habitually just wake up and go to grab my phone, it's not even there. So I have to get up, go downstairs, open the box, then look at my phone, right? So you're buying your willpower at the store, and you're not relying on it, especially when we feel like shit or we don't want to do it. That's when we want to rely more on our systems, which he's going to talk about, to make sure that we stick to the habit we're trying to do, right? Because you don't decide your future, your habits decide your future. And that's really what I think he's going to get into, what systems is all about. You want to have these habits run on autopilot. I like to think of them like algorithms. If this, then what? So not relying on motivation, even though at the beginning of the year or in January or every Monday or a new start of a month, right, we have this fresh start effect. We don't want to rely on that. We want to rely on the systems, because you want to buy your willpower at the store. So again, I love this, the visual he has right here from Justin, and seems like it's going to be great. Let's go.
We build processes that automatically help us to achieve the types of results that we're looking for. And once you find the processes that actually work, you then chain these processes together, and now you've got a system. Most people don't think in systems. Most people are operating in terms of intentions and tasks. So thinking, I need to exercise today, or I need to get more sleep, or I need to finish that course. But when you're busy, it is difficult to turn these intentions into reality. Now, if you're more proactive, you go from these intentions, and then you turn these intentions into plans. So for example, it's not just, I need to read more. It's, I'm going to spend an hour every evening to dedicate to reading. And it's not just, I need to exercise more. It's, okay, when I get home from work, I'm going to use that time to exercise every day. Okay, I've made a plan. But what happens if you're too tired? What happens if something comes up? What happens on day 3 of your plan, and then you realize you haven't even started yet? At this point, you just feel frustrated and disappointed in yourself, because yet again, your plans haven't come to fruition. So let's look at this same problem through the lens of thinking in systems. And there are 3 principles that I want you to keep in mind whenever you're thinking in systems, which will help you to build a system for your own goals. The first principle when we're thinking in systems is to think about things holistically. You look at your intention, and then you think about all the factors.
Let me pause right there for a second. I love the idea of a process, because I come from a sports background and I train athletes on their mental performance. And what we want to rely on are the routines and the processes. Because why? Because those can be maintained, those can be controlled, and those lead to more consistency. Again, if we always rely on our willpower and our motivation, it's going to be fleeting and we're going to be inconsistent. Now, of course, willpower is going to come and go. We want to use that when we absolutely have to. Motivation is going to come and go. And of course, we want to catch that motivation in a bottle and use it when we potentially need it, right? Some sort of behavioral activation potentially. But what we really want to do, again, is create that process that's reliable, that's consistent, that we can do simply no matter what. So discipline might underlie that, but systems are sort of the root, the foundation of it all. And he also talks about intentions. I talked about algorithms. Another way to look at it is an implementation intention. If this, then what, right? You want to anchor maybe that new behavior to something that you already do, an existing routine. If I walk through a door, then I take a deep breath, because you're trying to meditate more often. So you're getting in that one deep breath every time you walk through a door, and you're creating sort of an algorithm, and that's a system to apply to your life. Now, I'm not sure what else he's going to get into, but so far, very much enjoying the information.
Factors that would influence the success of that goal and that intention. So you are proactively expecting that plan to fail. You're expecting to be tired and lazy and for things to come up. And you're asking yourself, what can I do about that? And so when I'm coaching someone to build their own systems, one of the first things I'll do is I will ask them about all the things they've tried in the past and then why that didn't work for them. And I'm paying close attention to what they did, but also how they responded to that obstacle or that challenge. It's important that you do this step, because You need this list of all the possible barriers because there's a high chance that the system you end up creating is going to have to account for all of these factors. And this is actually directly tied to the second principle, which is that you should build your system for repeatability. You do not want to develop a system of doing something.
That's why there's an insight from BJ Fogg, who wrote a great book called Tiny Habits. And his insight for building any new habit is make it too small to fail, because that's repeatable. Okay, again, maybe your goal is to work out more, right? Whatever that is, right? That's the system you want to create in your life. That's the target you have. I like to use the word targets instead of goals, but most people use the word goals, so we'll stick with that for now. But if you say, I want to work out 3 days a week for 45 minutes a piece, that's a great, fantastic target to move your body. Everyone should be doing that. But if you don't work out at all, that's a very lofty goal. And maybe you feel super motivated right at the beginning of the year and you do it for a couple weeks and then you fall off because it's not repeatable. You haven't changed or implemented the actual system around your life that makes it repeatable. So you want to make that habit too small to fail. What if you say, I'm going to do one jumping jack 1 day a week, and then you slowly build from there? That's repeatable and repeatable and repeatable. And then 6 months down the line, you're working out twice a week. A year from now, you're working out 3 to 4 days a week because you've made that a system. You made that a principal part of your life of, I want to be someone who does that. Now you've changed your identity. You've created a new self-image. And now you've holistically, like Justin said, created this system in your life that allows you to work out 3 to 4 days a week. That's the whole point. Again, we go back to what athletes do. Athletes do a routine and a process that is consistent and repeatable every single day so they can show up for game time as the best version of themselves, especially baseball players who play almost every single day of the week. They have the same routine every day. So it's repeatable so they can be consistent. And we can apply those same principles in our own life. So let's continue.
That relies on like all the stars aligning. You want it to work on the worst day. And so if you think about your intention and then the plans that you have made, you can evaluate these plans in terms of how repeatable they are on a bad day. And ask yourself, does it rely on willpower or motivation for me to execute on this plan? And for the overwhelming majority of the clients that I work with, most of the plans that are created,
cut through the clutter and stand out on the #1 platform people use to make informed purchase decisions.
Usually require you to inject motivation and willpower to make it happen. And that is a violation of the second principle, which is to build for repeatability. You want to make sure that there is as little friction as possible. And so what happens when we work with these two principles and then think in systems is that you actually end up sort of cycling back and forth between these two principles. You figure out something that is high effort, that means that, you're going to rely on this willpower. And then you think about ways to avoid that. What are ways that I can make it easier? And then you go back and ask yourself, okay, well, what are the challenges? What are the obstacles? What are the other factors that might make that plan not work? So for example, there's this accountant that I was working with last.
Before he goes into the accountant stuff, I mean, maybe you want to think about right now at this point, discipline, right? He said, you want to be able to repeat this on your worst days, right? Jocko Willink talks about discipline all the time. What is discipline? Doing what you're supposed to do regardless of how you feel. And you can only have discipline in your life if you created the right system to allow you to be disciplined. Because then we're just relying on discipline, we're relying on willpower, we're relying on motivation, instead of building a little bit deeper underneath that, which is the system that Justin is talking about, which I think is quite brilliant and a beautiful way to think about it. And then instead of thinking about goals, you're thinking about the system that'll lead you towards your target, which is whatever you want it to be, becoming the best version of yourself, working out more, eating better food, getting better sleep, yada, 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 whatever the case may be. And so the reason we create systems is so that when we do feel our worst and we feel like shit, we didn't get enough sleep, the kids kept us up all night, we had to work late, whatever the case may be, life hit you in the fucking face, that you still can repeat that system even when you don't feel like doing it, because you've built it into your life as sort of a non-negotiable sort of routine. But then also when we create systems, it allows for some flexibility and some room to grow and breathe and change and adapt. And all that stuff is really quite important. If we're so rigid, then we're just going to fall off, because we've created such, strict lines, which are good. We need to have those bright lines to follow, but life will throw us in every different direction. And so we got to think, obstacles make me stronger. And then what systems allow me to continue moving forward on the thing that I deem most important to myself.
last year who are studying for their chartered accountancy exams, which is a pretty dense exam, and they're working full time as well. And their plan to begin with was that they were going to do a bit of studying for their CA exams every day after work as soon as they got home. Now, this plan failed like all the time because there's too much traffic. And sometimes he gets too tired on his drive home, and then he gets home and then there's family and he has to, prepare dinner. And then after dinner, he's like too tired and too sleepy. He just wants to relax. And so one solution to that, which is the common one, is to say, okay, well, you just need to like dig deep and then try harder, forget it if you're tired, who cares if you're tired, just do it anyway. And yes, that can work for a period of time, but personally, I don't believe that that is sustainable. And it's also kind of like not a pleasant way to live every day. So instead,
yeah, there are certainly going to be times in your life where you do have to kind of just force yourself to do the thing. That's certainly true. Sometimes the advice is, yeah, you just need to fucking work harder. But for most of us, we need to implement the right system in our life because we have kids, we have a full-time job, we have to take care of an elderly parent, we work late shifts, we have odd hours, we do that, we're going to school and working and trying to build systems, like so many different things going on in our life that if you're just forcing yourself every day to do this thing, it's just not going to last over a long period of time. So there are going to be seasons where you do have to kind of just force yourself to do that. Take care of yourself a little bit here, take care of yourself a little bit here, force yourself to get into action here. But really, the point is to build something, again, that is repeatable, which is, I think, is a huge, huge word that Justin keeps going back to, which I love as his second principle.
We think in systems holistically and for repeatability. We look at that problem and we say, okay, sure, what can we do about that? Perhaps we can stay at work for longer after work, and then you beat the traffic, you do the work and the study that you need to do in your office, and then you come home after that. So that's us trying to reduce the amount of effort, tackle some of these barriers that come up in terms of feeling too tired, not enough energy. And so we go back here and think, okay, well, what are the reasons why that might not work? So in this case, it's if I come home that late, then my entire family has to push back their dinner time. Could that work? Could you have a conversation with your family and maybe they're all fine with it? Maybe they can just push back dinner by an hour and it's no big deal. And then we've won. So that was one option. And then we explored another option. Okay, could we just study another time of the day? Could you study before work in the morning? The issue is, well, then I'm not going to get enough sleep. Okay, so could you sleep earlier to get enough sleep? Well, I can't because in the evening, whatever. Okay, could you change your nighttime routine to make that happen? So you see, we're constantly bouncing back and forth between looking for that low effort solution and then going back to think about all the reasons why it might not work until we arrive at this combination that allows us to lock in that success. And what's really important with this process is that you have to think about it as a series of problems to solve.
Here's a hot take. If you have a message inside you that people are meant to hear, it'll never make the impact that it truly deserves.
Just because your first solution isn't perfect doesn't mean that there is no solution. There is some combination of solutions that will work. Your role when you're thinking in systems is to look for that combination until you figure it out. And this is a process that I personally repeated hundreds of times, which eventually is what allowed me to work full-time as a doctor while running a business full-time, and then doing my master's full-time while going to the gym and having a social life and spending time with my family and getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. And often one of the biggest things I do now when I'm coaching someone.
Nice work, Justin, to be able to do all that. But there's an idea that sort of bounces off what he's trying to talk about with this holistic approach and going back between holistic and repeatable and finding solutions to your problems, is this idea of hope. There's a science behind hope, and there's 3 primary aspects of hope. One being, goals or targets, another one being agency, and another being pathways. And what he's talking about here is the pathways part. Now, there's going to be many different pathways that you're going to have to take to get to your eventual target, because every pathway that you have is not going to be free of obstacles. It's going to have obstacles, it's going to have challenges, and it's going to have setbacks. So what can you do to sort of plan ahead, to vision, to see that in the future, to maybe, okay, this is what I can do to switch to this pathway or this pathway or this pathway, because I have the agency to make it happen. And my target is so important to me that I'm willing to change my pathways. I'm willing to solve these problems along the way, to go back to my holistic approach, to make sure it's repeatable, because I have this hope for myself that my future can be better than my present. So it's targets or goals, agency, and pathways, knowing that every path you take is going to be full of challenges. So how can we overcome those challenges, fall down, get back up, fall 7, rise 8, know that these obstacles are making us stronger, And so we're just tweaking our systems based on those obstacles so that our system gets stronger as well. And I think that's important and very cool.
Is that I simply am more committed to looking for that solution for longer than they normally might. And a lot of the time, the solution we come to from this thinking process involves a certain level of discomfort. But this is actually fine. In fact, this is a good thing. The fact that a solution feels uncomfortable means it's different than what we're used to doing. And getting a different result to what we're used to getting is actually the whole point of thinking in systems. And what I found is that the discomfort of making the change and acting on the solution is often not as bad as the discomfort of not making the change. Or it may be uncomfortable to change your nighttime routine so that you can sleep 1 or 2 hours earlier. Yes, that's uncomfortable, sure. But it's not uncomfortable versus comfortable. It's uncomfortable versus even more uncomfortable. Because if you don't make those changes, you have to live with the stress and the pressure and the anxiety and the disappointment of never being able to make meaningful progress on these things that matter to you. Now, as you do this process and you go back and forth between these two principles.
I think one thing that's important to address, though, is like what I talked about a lot in my masterclass on goal setting or target setting is the idea of clarity and asking yourself, what do you really want? What target is extremely important to you? What do you actually want? If you look back at the end of 2026, at the start of 2027, what would make this year, quote unquote, success? And then that will lead you to thinking about what is the most important target? What do I really, really want? And once you have that clarity, then you can start asking yourself these questions that Justin is talking about to create the system to allow yourself to have this holistic, repeatable approach so that you can actually hit your targets over and over and over and over again. Because if we're always waiting for that goal in the distant future, which is somewhat out of our control, we only win that one time. But if we repeat our process and we repeat our systems over and over every single day, we're winning on a consistent basis, which again is rewarding us. And if we want to repeat something, we have to reward it, right? And so that's why you celebrate those small wins, things of that nature, which is another important part of habit change. It's like anchor, tiny habit, celebrate, right? That's really the sort of the 3-step process as you go into it. But before you get to all this, right, you really have to ask yourself that question of, what do I really want? What target is most important to me? What direction do I need to go in to reach that target? And so let's continue.
You will find that your intentions and your plans become much clearer and much more specific. Your plans are not just general statements about the fact that you're going to do something at a certain time. It covers contingencies. If I'm tired, I'm going to do this. If I'm not tired, I'm going to do this. You will learn so much about yourself and how you respond to different challenges that you will also learn how you can make it easier for yourself to just do the things that you need to do. The way you follow your plans and create habits and achieve your goals becomes much more fluid and dynamic, adapting to the unexpected challenges of life rather than having this rigid approach which constantly butts up against it. And the only thing holding it up is your unwavering willpower, which will waver. Now, this is something that I've been doing for years, and I've been helping people to build their own systems for years as well. And I've picked up a lot of little tips and tricks that make it easier to build systems for certain goals and overcome certain obstacles. Now, some of these things I share on YouTube, but another place that I share them is in my free weekly newsletter. These are emails, newsletters that I write up with my fingers myself, not ChatGPT generated, where I think about what are the things that I wish I had known when I was first building my systems and learning to learn effectively and manage my time more effectively. Then getting some of those insights, then I'll leave a link for you to sign up in the description below. Now on to the...
Also, thanks, Justin. But I also have a newsletter. If you're interested in subscribing, you can go to aaronmashbitz.com to subscribe to that newsletter. You get podcast episodes directly to your inbox, a couple newsletters per week. Basically get an email from me every single day. No spam ever. Super easy to unsubscribe. But check it out at aaronmashbitz.com, which you can see right here or linked in the description on YouTube or Rumble. So here we go.
The final principle. At this point, if you're just doing the first two, you will succeed. Each iteration of your plan and your system will just get better and better until you just don't have any obstacles left. But this final principle is what will allow that system to stay with you and evolve for life. And it makes it much easier to just maintain this system. So I call this peeling the Band-Aid. So peel the band-aids. Your first system that you build from this process is going to be full of band-aids. So for example, let's say that a problem you have with carrying out your plan is that you always feel too tired and you struggle to focus. So the first solution might be to take a nap during the day and to use a timer when you're working to try to increase your focus. These are band-aid solutions because they help you right now in the short term without addressing the underlying issue. The reason you're tired is because you're not getting enough sleep. The reason that you can't focus is because your attention span is terrible. And the reason we want to remove band-aid solutions, even though they can serve us in the short term, is because it just over bloats our system. And if possible, we want to remove the limitations and conditions for us to succeed. You know, what if you don't have time for a nap? What if you don't have a timer available for you? What, in that case, your plan just fails for that day? So while these band-aid solutions do give us a benefit right now, they should be a temporary solution while we work on solving the underlying problems. And often, working on these underlying issues involves a change in habits, which means because it involves unlearning and retraining your habits, it's going to take time. And so the very act of changing your habits so that you can one day remove these band-aid solutions should actually be part of your system. And so this changing habits actually ends up becoming another intention. And then we plug that into our system. So for example, yes, we might have figured out that taking a nap and using a timer is helpful for us right now.
Again, I know I said this earlier, but it's important to mention again because he mentioned the word habits. If you're trying to build a habit, you want to make that habit too small to fail. Excuse me. That's the number one insight I have. And again, on my podcast, very recent episode of my podcast, a solo episode, I did a Habits 101 class paired with the goal setting masterclass. I would watch both of those if you're interested in this stuff that we're talking about right here to really, really understand the science behind making and breaking habits that can absolutely change your life. Because once again, you don't decide your future. Your habits decide your future. And you want to start as small as humanly possible and incrementally build up from there. And that's how you actually build a system, because it's the habits that create the system, and it's the habits that actually create the foundational piece of you changing your life or getting more sleep or exercising more, eating better, or whatever, having a better relationship with your mom, or whatever the thing you want to do is, whatever the target you set is, right? Clarity is really important. What do I really want? And then what are the habits that are too small to fail that'll actually get me towards that target each and every single day? That's the system, and that's really important. So let's get back. I think there's a couple minutes left.
We can use that, but then at the same time, we think about how we can improve our sleep habits and how we can train our attention span. That becomes our new goal. And then we go through to these first two steps again to work that into our system. And by doing this, it means that the system we create ends up being effective for us, not only in the short term, but also in the long term. So these are the three principles for thinking in systems. And it may seem like a lot of work and a lot of thinking and all very complicated to create this system. But the crucial thing you have to understand is that it is the exact same amount of effort. It's the same amount or less discomfort. All we're saying is that there is a different way that you can direct that time and effort, which is much more likely to help you achieve your goal and finally feel like you have a bit more time and freedom in your life. Now, if you're a busy professional with lots to learn and the time spent learning is sucking away that time and freedom from your life, then you might want to check out this video where I teach you how to create a learning system so that you can develop deep, meaningful knowledge for huge workloads in half the time.
All right. Yeah, that was all right.
You know, the
Let's see. Let's get that one out of there. Yeah, anyways, that was okay. Wasn't like the the greatest video I've ever seen in my whole life, but it has 2 million views, so apparently people loved it. But Justin also has almost 2 million subscribers on YouTube, so that makes sense. But pretty good video. I mean, I love the idea of systems. I love creating those systems, but I think he missed the part really where you have to focus, really focus on your habits. Like your habits are the only thing that are going to create the right systems. And so you have to have hope about it. Like we talked about, agency, goals, pathways, right? Knowing that you're going to have to switch up your pathways, knowing that everything you do is going to have obstacles and challenges and setbacks, and that your habits are the number one thing that are going to change your life. And your habits are the number one thing that are going to create the right systems for you to go after the thing that you really want. So you have to get super clear on that. You have to get super clear on your target. And then you have to understand, okay, what are the smallest tiny habits that I can create that are actually going to move me in the right direction? So again, yeah, I appreciated that video from Justin. I'm glad I got to see, that's the first video I've ever seen of him, which is crazy, right? YouTube is so massive that even a guy with 2 million followers, and me being very interested in that subject and the stuff that he talks about, that's the first time I've ever seen him. So awesome. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. But again, if you're super interested in those types of systems and goals and habits, I would certainly check out my podcast called Something for Everybody. You can find it YouTube, X, freaking every podcast platform has full episodes. Habits 101, Goal Setting Masterclass, or you can text me at that number 201-534-3681 saying that you want those episodes, and I'll send you the direct link to those as well. But let's go to the next video, and yeah.
You want 2026 to be the best year of your life, the next 20 seconds might determine whether that happens. Because every January, and it destroys the year before it even begins. It's not laziness, it's not discipline, it's something far more predictable and far more fixable than that. I spent 25 years studying motivation and performance, and I've seen this pattern across athletes, executives, students, parents. The people who thrive don't rely on inspiration, they rely on structure. So in this video,
yeah, I mean, Daniel's saying the same thing to start off the bat, right? Justin used the word systems, Daniel's using the word structure. Same idea, right? There's an idea called structural discipline, which is probably what he's going to go to. Maybe he's not going to use the word discipline afterwards, but it is a structure or a system in your life that you have to create that allows you to actually do the thing you want to do, right? He's saying inspiration and motivation and willpower, all those things are unreliable sources of energy. But what is reliable is your system, is your habits, is your structures, is your non-negotiables, is your core values. Those things are extremely reliable. Now let's see what Daniel has to say. This video is about 26 minutes.
A simple science-backed system to design your best year ever and actually follow through. 4 acts, 20 techniques, all proven, all practical, and each one builds the foundation for a year you'll look back on and say, that's when everything changed. I'm going to throw a lot at you. That's why I've also created a workbook with a set of checklists to help you find your way through 2026. The link is in the description, and you can download it for free. If you give me the next few minutes, I'll give you the clearest plan you've ever had for a great year. Let's start. The first thing you want to do is run a regret review. Let's begin with something uncomfortable. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Then look back on 2025 and choose your biggest regret. Not a list, not a bundle, one. The one that bugs you the most. Something that you didn't do or wish you'd done differently. Maybe you didn't start that side project you said you would. Maybe you drifted from people you care about because you didn't reach out. You spent too much time scrolling and not enough time reading. For me, simple. I didn't protect my writing time. I let busy become an excuse, and I paid for it in the quality and the quantity of my work. That one stings. Now, take a piece of paper and write down your regret. Physically write it. It's gonna schedule. And the way to put that into practice is to schedule 3 hours of dedicated writing time every day in January. It's already blocked in my calendar. No debating, no dithering, just doing. My own research on regret shows that the worst way to deal with regret is to ignore it. The second worst way is to wallow in it. But the best way is to stare it in the eye and use it as a tool for getting better. So look at that.
So there's an insight there. Is like the work you are avoiding, or sorry, the growth you seek is in the work you are avoiding. That can be applied to anything, right? The relationship you want is in the conversation you're not willing to have, right? The growth you seek is in the work you are avoiding. And I ended 2025 with a full and ultimate reflection guide. And that's what Daniel's talking about here. He's talking about reflecting deeply on your 2025 experience, the wins, the losses, the regrets, the energy drainers, the energy givers. I also have that guide on my podcast. And that is sort of the starting point then that will lead you into the goal setting masterclass, which will lead you into the habits 101 class, which will lead you into the self-image class. All 4 of those episodes can be sort of compiled together and watched back to back to back to back to, again, like Daniel's saying, create the best year possible. But so far, he's sharing some good insights in terms of understanding and reflecting, right? We don't just grow from experience. We grow from reflection plus experience equals growth. And that reflection part is really important. And it's also about it's also really important to ask yourself the right questions. And I have that in my guide on my podcast, but also use the information that Daniel is also sharing here. So let's get into the next thing.
First page, the one with your regret. Again, it won't feel great, but recognize that you're human, that we all make mistakes, and treat yourself with compassion. Then crumple that paper and throw it away. Keep the second page, the one with the lesson and the plan. That's your guide for the first chapter of 20.
If you at any time need to write literally anything for school, there's a tool that is more essential than bringing your bag to.
Dang. Come on, internet. Don't veil me now.
26. Regret isn't weakness, it's instruction. Use it to decide what matters most in the year ahead. Most of us know what a postmortem is, but how about a premortem? That's our second idea. Now, jump to the end of 2026. You're there. Sit with that for a second. Seriously, close your eyes. It's New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2026, and the thing you cared about most didn't happen. You said you'd take 2 unforgettable trips, but you barely left your zip code. You said you'd spend more time with your family, but you let work or distraction or inertia get in the way. You said you'd finally start writing that book, but the pages are still blank. Ask yourself, what went wrong? Psychologist Gary Klein calls this a pre-mortem. Postmortem explains why something died. A premortem explains why something might die before it happens so you can stop it. Now stay in the future for a moment. Imagine what went wrong. Maybe you failed because you never put the important things on your calendar. Maybe you failed because you relied down the reasons for your imaginary failure, all of them. Then design 2026 to block those failures from becoming real. If your future self failed because you didn't plan family time, schedule 10 sacred family days right now before anything else claims that space. If your future self failed because nobody was holding you accountable, find someone this week to keep you honest, someone whose only job is to make sure you follow through. I use premortems for every major project. They've saved me from blind spots, wishful thinking, and some painful mistakes. You can do the same. Jump forward, imagine the future, then build a version of 2026 where that failure never gets a chance. The next idea?
Yeah, it's very similar to the idea of, zooming yourself forward to the end of your life and you're about to take your very last breath. What do you think about your life? Did you give it everything you got? Or is there some regrets on the table? I love the idea of a pre-mortem, right? So Chris Williamson also has this idea of what would make your 85-year-old self miserable? What would he do? What would make your 85-year-old self miserable if you kept doing the same thing over and over and over again? These are all the same types of questions. Think about what your life would be in the future if you keep doing these same habits over and over and over and over again and don't change a single thing. Now, again, we have to go back to making our habits too small to fail before we can think about, changing our entire life. We want to change one small, tiny thing and incrementally build from there. But it's a really, really important idea to zoom forward and see if we keep doing the same things over and over and over again, where's our life going to be like? What are people going to say about us at our funeral? And what are we going to think about of our lives when we take our very last breath? And so I think that's also extremely important. So think about that as a pre-mortem exercise. And now he's going to go into one word theme. Great. Love it.
Adopt a theme for 2026. People love New Year's resolutions, and there's evidence they can be effective, especially when we limit them to a few ideas and keep them specific and focused on behaviors we can control. So if you've got a resolution or two for 2026, go for it. But I'm going to challenge you to do something more. Choose a single word and make it your theme for the year. Not a sentence, not a paragraph, a single word that captures the kind of year you want and the kind of person you're trying to become. Maybe it's simplify or connect or build. Use this word as your compass for the rest of the year. When you're lost, remember that word and let it guide you. For me, the word of 2026 is ship. I've spent the last couple of years experimenting, and that's been great. But this year, I'm shifting from exploring to executing. I want to ship more stuff and get more work on the screen, on the page, and on the stage, even when things aren't perfect, even when I don't feel like I'm 100% ready. And that's why having a theme works. Psychologists call it a self-cue, a simple word or phrase that instantly snaps your attention back to what matters. So when I get lost fixing a sentence for the 13th time, when I'm tempted to generate new ideas instead of finishing existing ones, when I drift, I come back to that one word, ship. Now it's your turn. Here's a list of 50 words. Pick one, write it down, and let it guide the decisions you make, the projects you choose, and the person you become in 2026. And now for the last idea in Act 1, organize.
So in sports, this idea is called a two-word mantra. Words you go back to over and over and over again to help you get back into the present moment. When I was playing baseball, it was be resilient and be dominant. Now in my life, I have two words that really drive my life. Now they're the same words I've used for the past couple of years, and it's consistency and zest. I want to be as consistent as possible with the things I do. I want to be consistent as a husband and a father, most importantly, but I also want to be consistent in my work and my podcasting and my streaming and all that stuff. And I want to live with zest. I want to live with energy and enthusiasm, which means I have to prioritize my eating, my moving, and my sleeping. And so those two words, since I stopped playing ball and really transformed my life to think about this stuff more often, and since I started doing my podcast, consistency and zest are my themes. And so that's not one word, it's two words, but I really do love the idea of picking one or two words that can drive you, that can motivate you, that you can think about as sort of your mantra or your alter ego that really move you forward in the right direction for the person that you're trying to become.
The year into 90-day seasons. A year is a long time. 365 days, 8,760 hours. It's daunting. That's why so many people lose steam. So instead of approaching the year as one extremely long stretch, treat it as 4 shorter chapters, each with its own focus. Act a little less like Father Time, a little more like Mother Nature. The natural world runs on seasons, so why shouldn't you? Why 90 days? Because it's long enough to make real progress, but short enough that you can see the finish line from the starting line. And when the finish line is closer, motivation goes up and persistence gets easier. Research on quarterly goal setting shows the same thing. Shorter feedback loops lead to longer lasting effort and faster course correction. So here's how to use it. Every 90 days, do a mini reset. Reflect on what worked, reset what didn't, redirect your time and energy toward the next season's priorities. Because 4 90-day pushes will beat one vague 12-month intention every single time. You've just built the foundation, clarity about the past, the future, and what matters most. Now it's time to build a structure that keeps you on track. That's Act 2. This act is all about building a structure that sets you free. And the first idea is this: protect your first hour. The first hour of your day is the hour your brain is most impressionable, the moment that sets the trajectory for the rest of the day. And most people, smart, capable, ambitious people, hand that hour over to their inbox, to their phone, to the demands of other people's priorities. Don't do that. A University of London study found that multitasking early in the day drops your effective cognitive performance by the equivalent of 10 IQ points. That's the difference between doing great work and doing forgettable work. So protect your first.
There's also an idea that multitasking doesn't even exist. It's really task switching. And when you task switch over and over and over again, your brain leaves some residue on the last task you switched from. So you physically and mentally cannot be 100% focused on the thing that you're doing because there's still some residual sort of energy left on this task you just switched. So it's not really multitasking. I think the only people in the world who can who can multitask are mothers. But for the rest of us sort of mortals, right, we're really just task switching. We're going back and forth between tasks and we're not following through on anything. There's some residue left over, so our mental energy is not fully focused on what we're doing. So try and follow through on one task. Try to protect that hour, like he's saying, like it's sacred. Have a potential morning routine that you do that's a non-negotiable, whether it's like keeping your not touching your phone for an hour after you wake up, or anything that you've sort of heard or seen that might be good for your morning routine. You're going to have to try some stuff and throw some shit against the wall. But that first hour is really good, right? Before I had my son, who's now 4 months old, I would get into my office within the first 5 minutes of waking up because I can already get into flow state because of the brain waves that I had when I was sleeping. I just get to my desk and I start working, and that gets me into flow immediately. And that first hour of work is really deep work for me. So think about what it might work for you, but understand like multitasking is not possible. It's really just task switching. So let's jump back in with Daniel. Love this video so far.
Hour like it's sacred, because it is. Use it for deep work, quiet work, creative work, anything that moves your priorities forward, anything that's about you directing your life rather than responding to circumstance. For some people, that's writing. For others, it's exercise. For others, it's reading something that expands their thinking before the world shrinks it away. For me, I truly try to never begin my day by answering email, because the minute I open my inbox, my brain learns a dangerous lesson. This is where the action is. But that's never where the action is. And I've squandered an opportunity to make progress on what matters. So set aside that first hour, guard it like an attack dog, and then get to work. Just imagine stacking 1 hour on another hour, on another hour, on another hour of your most important work 365 times. That's 365 hours devoted to what is most important to you. That will change your year. 5 down, 15 to go.
Staying late again? Yep, got prospect calls to summarize. You really need to switch to Mondays here.
Oh, we're on our way to planning a great year. The next one.
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea from Cal Newport, which is like, get some deep work in, right? Huberman and Cal Newport suggest that you do 90-minute work blocks. That's about the extent that our brain can really fully, deeply focus and be in the present moment. Then you want to take about a 15-minute break. Some sort of non-sleep deep rest, some physical activity, jumping jacks, whatever, stay off screens for a little bit, and then get back to another 90-minute work bout. But you can really dominate the day early in the morning if you have that first hour is sacred. Like for me as a dad, it's like the hour before now that my son wakes up. But he's sporadic now because he's only 4 months old. So sometimes he wakes up at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. So it sort of depends on the day. But I try to get that first hour in of the day to just do what's most important to get myself ready for the day. And then my wife and I get our son ready. But for you, if you have that hour that you can take for yourself, it's really important to get into that deep work, Cal Newport or Huberman style, as they suggest. So let's go to the 2-minute rule now.
Use the 2-minute rule. You've blocked out the first hour. Here's something I swear by for the other 23 hours where the small tasks pop up and threaten to pile into a mountain. It's called the 2-minute rule. It comes from David Allen, and it's pretty simple. If a task takes 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. Why does this matter? Because small tasks are deceptive. They look insignificant, but they create invisible cognitive clutter. Returning a text, signing a form, throwing something in the laundry. Individually, these tasks are nothing, but collectively, they become a fog that slows down every part of your mental machinery. The 2-minute rule is a fog remover. If it's quick, finish it. Don't think about it, don't plan it, don't schedule it, just do it. You're not trying to get everything done. You're trying to keep friction low so you have the mental bandwidth for bigger, deeper work. I use this constantly. When I'm outside of my deep work and something comes in, an email, a request, a minor task, I ask myself, 2 minutes? If yes, it's gone instantly. If not, it goes on my list. This one habit alone makes my days feel lighter, cleaner, and more focused. The next one, create a weekly shutdown ritual. Most people end their work week the same way. They slam the laptop shut, they grab their bag and sprint toward the weekend. But their mind never makes it out of the office. On Saturday and Sunday, they're still mentally debugging the week, running through open loops, half-finished tasks, decisions they never made, emails they're vaguely worried they forgot to send. Their body is off the clock, but their brain is still on call. There's a better way. Cal Newport, the author and computer science professor, has found that a deliberate shutdown ritual dramatically reduces weekend rumination. Why? Because your brain doesn't need everything finished. It just needs to know that future you has a plan. That's enough to release the mental pressure valve. So, before logging off on Friday, spend 5 minutes setting up Monday. Review your tasks, decide your top 3 priorities for the next week, block the first 60 or 90 minutes of Monday for something that matters, and then end with a verbal cue. Cal uses shutdown complete, but you can use anything you want. Week over, pink out, whatever. Yeah, this is a little corny, but it works because it gives you cognitive closure. It frees your brain for recovery, which boosts creativity, insight, and emotional energy. When your mind feels safe to rest, it actually rests. So imagine doing this for 52 consecutive weeks. Whenever Monday comes along, you won't feel dread. You'll feel prepared all year. Another idea for 2026.
Well, I suggest doing this shutdown ritual every single day, because you can separate your life into 3 aspects: energy, work, and love. Energy is the foundation, right? Eating well, moving well, sleeping well, and thinking well. So energy is the foundation. So energy drives everything else, right? You want to have enough energy and zest to be able to do the things that are most important to you: family, work, things like that. So then you have work and love. And if you want to switch between work and love, you have to have a shutdown ritual between work to get into love, right? If I'm doing deep work, then I have a shutdown ritual then I can go into deep love. And so there should be a shutdown ritual for each task that you're doing so you can move into the next aspect of your life. And so there should be a digital sunset. There should be an eating sunset, right? A digital sunset meaning this is when I stop using digital technology. An eating sunset, this is when I stop eating. There should be a shutdown ritual from work so you can get into deep love, especially if you're a parent or a husband or if you have a partner and you want to remove that sort of cognitive closure like he's talking about and then get into that deep love. And so it doesn't have to be weekly. It could be daily. Every time you close a laptop, you say, okay, I got these tasks done. These are what's most important for tomorrow. I'm shut down, complete. Boom, I'm moving into deep love now. And so then now we're going to go into a weekly reset, it looks like.
On a weekly reset. Every Sunday night, set aside 15 minutes to pull your life out of chaos and into clarity. You don't need a complex system, you just need a reset. Sit down with your calendar and your to-do list, not to punish yourself, but to take back control of the week before it takes control of you. Look at what's coming. What's essential? What can wait? What needs to be moved, canceled, protected, upgraded, delegated? Where do you need breathing room? A study from Dominican University showed that people who write down their goals and regularly review them are significantly more likely to achieve them. The review is just as important as the writing. This small ritual changes the emotional tone of your entire week. Monday stops being a cold plunge and starts becoming a launch pad. You begin with clarity instead of confusion, intention instead of reaction. It's astonishing how much calmer and more effective your week will become if you give yourself this tiny moment of control. 15 minutes on Sunday night throughout 2026 will buy you hours, sometimes days, of calm, focus, and forward motion. The next one, try mise en place for life. Chefs have a secret that has nothing to do with knives or sauces. It's called...
So in terms of a weekly reset, what I suggest to my athletes is they do after every training session on every Sunday is a well, better, how. What did I do well? What are things I want to improve upon? And how am I going to do that? Just basic 3 questions you can ask yourself at the end of each day, at the end of each week. Well, better, how. Again, I go much deeper into all of this stuff on my episodes, but I think it's important to place that here as, you know, Daniel's talking about a weekly reset. Those are 3 questions you can ask yourself. What did I do well this week? What went awesome? Boom, 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 boom. Write all that down. What are a couple things I want to improve upon? Great. How am I going to do that moving into next week? Well, better, how. So he got this French thing in here now. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that.
Mise en place. French for everything in its place. Before they cook, they organize.
I think we're going to go with you guys.
That's great. Awesome. Let me get the contract.
One last thing. Your sock too.
Ingredients chopped, tools out, surfaces cleared, not because they love tidiness, but because preparation creates speed and accuracy. I advise you to steal the secret. Research on implementation intentions shows that people who prepare their environments in advance are far more likely to follow through on their goals. What does this mean in practice? If you want to exercise in the morning this year, lay out your workout clothes the night before and put them in the exact place where you'll see them when you wake up. If you want to use that first hour to write, clear your desk the night before. Open the document you'll be working on, type a single sentence or question at the top, something your sleepy brain can respond to instantly. Order isn't sterile, order is strategic. Build mise en place into your days during 2026, and all the days will flow. Final idea in this section, take a 15...
That, as I talked about these implementation intentions earlier, or these algorithms, I like to think of it as if this, then what? If I wake up in the morning, then I write. If I wake up in the morning, then I put on my workout gear and I do some exercise, right? If I walk through a door, then I take a deep breath. If I go to the bathroom, then I do a push-up, right? You're putting these implementation intentions all throughout your day to add more and more of these habits that you want to do throughout the day, and they just run on autopilot. They run as algorithms, and your life sort of becomes rhythmic because of it. And that's the version of the French thing that he said, mise en place. my grandma who speaks French would be very disappointed in my pronunciation of that. But anyways, yes, implementation intentions. If this, then what? If this, then what? And then you start to get that and do it more often, and then it becomes a habit, and then it runs on autopilot. And now we're going to talk about a 15-minute walk break, which I mentioned doing in between your bouts of deep work. But let's see what Daniel thinks about it.
Minute walk break. I've said it before, but as you all know, I believe in repetition. Breaks aren't a deviation from our performance. They're part of our performance. Breaks aren't an enemy of great work. They are an engine of great work. But we have to be intentional and deliberate about taking them. And we know that the best, most restorative breaks are outside and in motion. For instance, one Stanford study found that people walking on a treadmill generated more than twice as many new ideas as people sitting in a chair. And when people walked outdoors, the number of creative ideas they produced went even higher. So, Once a day this year, step outside for 15 minutes and move. Don't wait for the
I'm
moment.
just gonna say I've never watched a video of Daniel, but I like him. He's kind of corny, but I like him a lot.
To strike, though, stick it in your calendar. Just you, your feet, and the world. It will clear your head, reset your mood, and sharpen your thinking far more than grinding through another half an hour at your desk. It's astonishing how many great artists and scientists were walkers. Charles Dickens, Virginia Woolf, Henry David Thoreau, Nietzsche, Beethoven, Aristotle, Georgia O'Keeffe, even Steve Jobs. And now, maybe you. Okay, you've designed your structure, but you still need fuel. Something that makes showing up easier and keep.
So I mentioned this, right? Like, going for a walk is one of the greatest things you can possibly do in your whole life, right? If you're someone who wants to move a little bit more, aiming for 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 steps a day will absolutely 100% change your life. And if you're going to implement the 90-minute work bouts, then the 15-minute break goes right there, and it's moving your body. It's doing a couple of jumping jacks. It's doing some burpees, right? It's doing some push-ups. It's doing some squats. It's going out for a walk. It's getting off the screen for a little bit so your brain can reset, right? Chris Williamson of Modern Wisdom talks about this all the time. He says your rest ethic is just as important as your work ethic, right? If energy, work, and love is how we separate our life, we can't have the most energy possible to get to the edge of our capacity every single day if we're not focused on our energy. And our energy is about sleeping and focusing on our rest ethic so that we have the ability to live with zest, to lean into life, to do the work that's most important to us. So it's energy, work, and love, but it's also moving your body, and moving your body is hugely important. And if all we have is the chance to take one 15-minute walk outside throughout the day, we have to take it. It's so beneficial for our health. Now let's keep moving forward.
You showing up when the novelty fades. That's what Act 3 is all about. Halfway done, folks. Here's Act 3. Build motivation by upgrading your inner operating system. Embrace the 85% rule. We grow fastest not when things are perfect, but when they're almost perfect. Machine learning researchers at the University of California, San Diego discovered something counterintuitive. Systems learn best when they're right about 85% of the time. Not 100%, not 50%, 85. If you're succeeding all the time, the task is too easy. No adaptation, no evolution. If you're failing most of the time, the task is too hard. Too much noise, not enough signal. The sweet spot is that narrow band where you're stretched but not snapped, where your abilities are just behind your ambitions. Experiences where you grow aren't the ones that feel effortless. They're the ones that sit just on the edge of your ability. So here's what you can do to launch into 2026. Pick one goal you're working on right now. Writing, running, coding, whatever. Then deliberately dial the difficulty so you're succeeding about 8 or 9 times out of 10. If it's too easy, increase the challenge. If you're failing constantly, dial it back. Start living at 85%. That's where growth happens. But here's the thing, it won't feel good. But that uncomfortable feeling isn't failure. It's the emotional signature of learning, which leads to the next point. Redefine discomfort.
This is called the challenge skills ratio. That's what he's talking about, right? You want to stretch yourself like a rubber band, not where you snap, but where there's just enough tension where it's really difficult enough. If it's too easy, you get bored. If it's too hard, you stop doing it, right? You want to fine tune that balance of the challenge skills ratio so that, again, you're leaning on that 85% rule. So, man, really liking this video from Daniel so far. A lot of good information in here.
You, just you, building your app on Base 44.
See ya. Come
As
on,
learning.
man.
A few years ago, I decided to take some acting classes, not because I thought I'd win an Oscar, but because I believed it would make me a better writer. Believe me, it did not feel great, to put it mildly, especially at the beginning. I was awkward, rigid, clumsy. My brain kept firing the same alert. Stop! You're doing something wrong. But eventually I learned that message wasn't a warning. It was a signal I was on the right track. Research from Mayela Fishbach at the University of Chicago shows that real progress often feels deeply unpleasant. In her studies on how people pursue goals, participants underestimated just how much effort true learning requires. When something feels easy, you're usually coasting. When something feels awkward, effortful, or slightly embarrassing, that's the sign you're growing. Effort, not ease, is the neurological cue for improvement. So, The next time a task feels uncomfortable, public speaking, writing a new chapter, having a difficult conversation, pause and tell yourself, this isn't failure. This is what learning feels like. Train your brain to see discomfort not as a stop sign, but as a mile marker on the road to mastery. And once you can handle discomfort, the next step is to shape your environment so it works for you, not against you. And that means designing friction wisely. Willpower is overrated. If you're always relying on it, you're never going to win. That's because your environment beats your...
To reiterate what I stated at the very beginning of this stream, buy your willpower at the store. Buy your willpower at the store. And if you don't know what that means or don't understand that lingo, head to the very beginning of the stream where I talked about it, or check out one of my podcast episodes where I explain the essence of willpower and why you want to buy it at the store. Here we go.
Intention almost every time. Behavioral economists have shown that adding or removing tiny bits of friction, a few extra steps here, some fewer steps over there, can shape your behavior more effectively than motivation alone. Delete one app and your screen time plummets. Set up automatic savings and suddenly you're consistently putting money away. We're not weak, we're human. And humans follow the path of least resistance. So the smart move is to design that path intentionally. Here's a concrete idea for starting the year, one that takes just 5 minutes and pays dividends for months. Pick one behavior you want to reduce and make it harder. Pick one behavior you want to increase and make it easier. That's it. If you want to scroll less at night, charge your...
Yeah, I mean, James Clear talks about this all the time in terms of behavior change. If you want to install a good habit, make it easy, make it too small to fail. If you want to delete a bad habit, make it really hard, make it invisible. That's what he's talking about here, and he's about to go into it in a second, I imagine.
Phone in another room. If you want to eat healthier, prep a bowl of washed fruit and put it at eye level in the fridge. In 2026, spend less time trying to summon your will and more time reconfiguring your environment. The next one, use public promises. A strange thing happens when we tell another person what we intend to do. Our odds of actually doing it jumps, not because the other person nags us and not because we suddenly become more disciplined, but because we've created a tiny social contract, one our brains are surprisingly motivated to honor. A fascinating experiment published in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that participants who made specific promises to a single accountability partner showed significantly higher follow-through than those who kept their goals private. The magic isn't in the announcement, it's in the relationship. A goal shared with one trusted person becomes more concrete, more binding, and more real. But here's the twist. Shouting your goals to the entire world, posting them across social media, often backfires. Public declarations can create a premature sense of accomplishment, draining the motivation to do the actual work. So, here's your beginning of the year move. Pick one meaningful goal, share it with one person, and ask them to check in with you every Friday with one question. Did you do what you promised? Simple, quiet, incredibly effective. The next one, track small wins daily. If you want to build...
I mean, again, that's another idea of like making your habits too small to fail, right? That's another idea of having clarity on what you really want. So you're headed in the right direction and you can build the habits that make the most sense for the thing that you're trying to accomplish. And then, of course, he's about to go into track your little wins.
Unstoppable motivation this year. Don't focus exclusively on the finish line. Focus on the next step. In her landmark book, The Progress Principle, Harvard's Teresa Amabile analyzed thousands of daily work diaries and found a striking pattern. People feel and perform their best on days when they experience small wins, tiny steps forward, even if they're modest or imperfect. It wasn't praise that kept people going. It wasn't perfection either. It was progress. Small wins generate progress loops. Progress creates positive emotion, which fuels more progress, which generates even more motivation. Trouble is, most of our work environments aren't built to let us see our progress. So we often overlook our progress and instead focus on setbacks and frustrations. But here's how to fix that. Create your own progress ritual. At the end of each day this year, take 60 seconds and write down 3 ways you made progress. Doesn't matter how small. Sent an email you've been avoiding. Read 3 pages. Went for a walk instead of scrolling. You don't need to look at the list again. It's the act itself that matters. Trust me on this. I've been using this technique for a decade. So try this every day in January. By February, you'll have a ritual you'll keep for the rest of the year. Because once you see your daily wins, your momentum becomes very hard to stop. Master difficulty, embrace discomfort, shape your environment, and count your wins. That's how you build a motivation system that lasts. Time for the last piece. Because nobody sustains excellence alone. Act 4, connect and renew.
Yeah, I mean, out of every high performer or elite performer in every domain that I've studied or worked with, they do this one thing. They do what they say they're going to do, which means they keep the little promises they make to themselves. And if you keep the little promises you make to yourself, you inherently build self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation and the cornerstone of confidence. And confidence is an action, right? Confidence really means intense trust in oneself. And again, the way we build that is through preparation, previous success, and our self-talk. And our self-talk is based on evidence, and the evidence is based on receipts that you kept the little promises you make to yourself. And that again goes back to making your habits too small to fail, keeping those little promises you make to yourself, building that evidence, which leads to more self-trust, which leads to more confidence. And that's the sort of the essence of the whole progress loop and improvement loop and becoming the best version of yourself.
Strengthen the forces that strengthen you. First idea in this section, build a challenge network. You know, everyone loves a compliment, but compliments don't improve your work. The real upgrades come from the people brave enough to tell you uncomfortable truths. So how can you design that into your life? Well, psychologist Adam Grant has a great idea. Build a challenge network, a small group of people who care about you enough to tell you when your work isn't good enough. In his research and corporate work, he's found that people who actively invite criticism from trusted peers learn faster and perform better than those who just collect praise. So don't just ask, what'd you think? Ask something sharper. What's one thing I can do better? And make it a habit. Here's a simple way to do that in 2026. Create Feedback Fridays. Once a week, send one piece of work, a draft, a slide deck, an idea to one person in your challenge network. Along with it, ask a single focused question. What's one thing you'd change to make this better? You don't need a dozen critics. 2 or 3 honest, thoughtful challengers will keep your ego grounded, your learning curve steep, and your work getting better and better week after week. The next one, curate your circle.
If you don't believe creating SOPs can take seconds instead of hours, you haven't tried Scribe. Check out the 1,000.
Your challenge.
All right, let's say this one thing before we move on to that next one. It's like Dr. Michael Gervais, renowned sports psychologist, says this all the time. He says, nobody does anything great alone. And then Harvard comes out with an 85-year study that says the 2 things that are most important that lead to the good life are great health and great relationships. What Daniel is alluding to here is great relationships. And in great relationships, people challenge you. They hold you accountable. They tell you when you're fucking up, right? Not in a harsh, mean, shaming way, but like, hey, I know you and I know you can do better, right? That's what a great coach does. That's what a great role model does. That's what a great partner or friend does. And so nobody does anything great alone. And so important to go on this journey with people, but you don't have to share your goals with the whole world. That's not the point, right? Daniel alluded to the science behind that as well. It's about sharing your goal or your target or your habit that you're trying to build with one person who you know is going to hold you accountable and know is going to say, hey, you're not holding up your end of the bargain. We said we were going to go to the gym together, 1 day a week. You've missed twice now. What's the deal? Right? So nobody does anything great alone, and great relationships are the cornerstone of a great life and are extremely helpful when you're trying to do something you've never done before, like build a new habit or start this new routine or aim at this target or build this business or whatever the case may be. And so really think about that. Who's the people in your life you can create with, who can hold you accountable with, who you can be honest with about how hard this is and how lonely the work has been and how you're tired and whatever. Like they're saying, you got this, you can do this. Or on the other side, they're saying, hey, you got to pick it up a little bit more. You said you wanted to do this thing. Where are the actions that are standing behind that? Here we go.
This network sharpens your work, but your broader circle, that shapes your life. And you need to be careful about that because you can end up absorbing the attitudes, habits, and energy of people you never consciously chose. Sociologist Nicholas Christakis, in his famous work on social contagion, found that emotions and behaviors spread through social networks up to 3 degrees. Happiness spreads, discipline spreads, so do their opposites, stress, indifference, bad habits. So heading into 2026, don't just let your circle happen. Curate it and start with the role that we just discussed, your challenger. This is someone who won't let you coast, someone who pushes your thinking and tells you the truth. Keep that person close, then add 2 more. First, a cheerleader, not a flatterer, someone who genuinely believes in you and helps you recover on the days you'd otherwise quit. The second one, a coach, Someone who has already played the game you're trying to play, 1 or 2 steps ahead, able to see the patterns you can't see. That's your trio. Challenger, cheerleader, coach. Not a crowd, not a committee, a calibrated circle, because energy is contagious, ambition is contagious, courage is contagious. So pick the people who push you forward. Next one, create a...
I mean, that's another sort of stamp of approval on what I just said. And what Daniel's also saying is like great relationships. Great relationships are the cornerstone of a great life. Who you surround yourself with will absolutely 100% impact the way you feel and act and think and perform in this world. So choose wisely. Also, you can think about who you follow on social or what podcasts you listen to. That's also a part of the social contagion and what information you're consuming. So what does your digital consumption look like, and how is that influencing the way you think, feel, and act in this world? Are you consuming people like Justin and Daniel, and hopefully my podcast now called Something for Everybody, that's going to uplift you, encourage you, and invite you to be the best version of yourself? Or are you just doom scrolling and looking at all these other things that are not helping you evolve and be of service to the world? So let's go on to the to-don't list. We got about 4 minutes left in the video.
We obsess over what to add to our lives, new goals, new habits, new tools. But one of the most powerful performance boosters isn't addition, it's subtraction. And yet research has shown we have a hard time thinking subtractively. Our brains want to solve problems by doing more, not by doing less. But we can overcome this cognitive bias with a to-don't list, a small list of things we should stop doing. So every quarter in 2026, ask yourself this one deceptively simple question. What's not worth my time? A recurring meeting that adds nothing? A committee you've outgrown? A project you're keeping alive out of habit, not purpose? Here's your January move. Pick one thing, just one, that you will stop doing for 90 days. Put it on your calendar as a to-don't and honor that commitment. When people stop doing low-value tasks, their productivity and well-being jump dramatically. Subtraction frees up time, attention, and emotional bandwidth in ways addition never can. You've already got a to-do list. This year, try a to-don't list.
As a medical student, I wear a lot of hats, from seeing patients to studying for exams, and lately...
See ya.
We're almost there. 2 more. Try micro.
So there's my favorite insight, maybe outside of making your habits too small to fail, is this idea of that the fastest way to improve your life is to stop doing the things that make you feel like shit. And so I created a PDF. That's 4 things to quit to transform your life. 4 things to quit to transform your life. This is like adding to your life via subtraction. So again, you want to delete some bad habits. Cool. What's one habit you want to delete? The fastest way to improve your life is to stop doing the things that make you feel like shit. And if you want that, free PDF, 4 things to quit to transform your life, text me at my number and I'll link you that PDF. But again, yes, subtraction can be just as valuable as addition, because we also want to delete those bad habits to install new ones on top of that. And so now we have micro Sabbaths. Here we go.
Sabbaths. Earlier in this video, I told you to take a walk break. That's movement. That's creativity. A micro Sabbath is its calmer cousin. It's not about motion, it's about stillness. A micro Sabbath is a short, intentional pause where you stop feeding your brain inputs. No phone, no laptop, no scrolling, no stimulation, just 10 or 15 minutes of nothing. Quiet, nature, breathing, or simply sitting in a chair without trying to achieve anything. And it's incredibly restorative. Research on attention restoration theory shows that even brief moments of quiet or gentle, natural attention lower stress, restores cognitive capacity, and boosts creativity. It's the mental equivalent of clearing your cache. So this year, find a 30-day stretch and once a day, take a 15-minute micro Sabbath with 0 agenda. Sit by a window, stare at a tree, lie on a couch, do absolutely nothing, and don't apologize for it. This isn't laziness, it's maintenance. Walks spark ideas. Micro Sabbaths restore your brain so you can actually use them. And our final idea.
Andrew Huberman, Dr. Andrew Huberman, calls this non-sleep deep rest. It's a beautiful idea. Again, micro Sabbath, non-sleep deep rest, same idea, right? Something that you can just shut your brain off, be still, right? Meditation and visualization and imagery is active, right? You're paying attention to your breath on purpose. This is just like being, right? Some people call it, some people have started raw dogging their airplanes, flights, right? Where they just sit there with nothing to do. This is kind of the same idea, right? A non-sleep deep rest. You can close your eyes. You can just do nothing, stare at a tree, watch the leaves blow or whatever the case may be. It's like, just try and shut down. Now, 10, 15 minutes can be a very, very hard and very long time. So start with 30 seconds, start with a minute, Start with 2 minutes. Start with something that's too small to fail, and then incrementally build from that space moving forward. But a brilliant idea, calling it a micro Sabbath.
For a great 2026, send 26 thank you notes. If you want a practice that strengthens your relationships, boosts your well-being, and keeps you grounded through the ups and downs of the year, here it is. Write more thank you notes. Psychologists Martin Seligman and Robert Emmons have both shown that expressing gratitude, especially in the form of written letters, produces a lasting boost in happiness, reduces stress, and deepens connection. In some studies, the positive effects last for weeks or even months. In one study, gratitude writers reported 25% more life satisfaction and even exercised more, about an hour and a half extra per week. Not bad for a stamp and a few sentences. So, the beauty of gratitude letters is their simplicity. They don't require grand gestures or poetic writing. They just require attention. Attention to the people who've helped you, supported you, taught you, challenged you, or somehow made your life a little better. So here's your 2026 challenge, one that's easy to remember. Send 26 thank you notes this year, one every 2 weeks. Handwritten is best, short is fine, simple, clear, sincere, that's all you need. You'll brighten someone's day, strengthen a relationship, and without fail, lift your own mood. There you have it. 20 evidence-based ways to design your best year yet. Don't try to use all of them. Just pick 2 or 3 that really speak to you and give them a try. Because a better year isn't something you wait for. It's something you create.
Nice. Brilliant. I really enjoyed that video from Daniel. That was awesome. I thought that was much better than Justin's video, but whatever. I'm just an observer. But also on the idea of gratitude, right? Gratitude postures us for the miracles of life. And every day that we get to wake up and breathe and try again is a miracle. So once we start practicing gratitude as not just like a thing that we do or a feeling, but an action and a posture that we have towards life, our life does get better. We start to appreciate things more. We value what we have while we have it, because everything is fleeting. Everyone you know is going to die. You're going to die. Life is precious. It's fragile. So might as well totally and completely appreciate what we have while we have it, value what we have while we have it, while also striving to become more, to grow more, to evolve more, to have deeper relationships with others and ourselves, and ultimately to become the best version of ourselves in greatest service to the world. So again, that was kind of your 2026 blueprint from a couple guys that I've never seen videos from. I thought they were good videos. Justin and Daniel Pink, like the Daniel Pink video. And again, if that information was of interest to you at all, I have a bunch of episodes on my podcast, starting with the reflection episode, going into the goal setting masterclass, going into the habits 101 class, and then we're releasing tomorrow the self-image 101 class. All 4 of those episodes are really, if you listen to them all back to back to back to back and take notes and really implement the information, you will have the most amazing and incredible year of your life, which is the whole point, and it keeps getting better and better and better from there. So if you're interested in any of those things, follow or subscribe wherever you're watching, or text me at the number of 201-534-3681 that you came from this stream, and I will link you to the episode of your choice. But thank you very much. Appreciate you for tuning in.